my number one advice to folks, I think this goes across every industry, don't wait for things to come to you. Go be hungry, go dig in, go try things out, go learn. I'm so thankful that there's platforms like Coursera in the world because I think this is an incredible spot of like up to the minute updated content for you to go learn these things.
Welcome to the Coursera podcast, where we have conversations with renowned experts and industry leaders to explore global trends impacting the future of education and work. I'm your host, Arunav, Vice President of Global Communications at Coursera. Building products with AI brings powerful new capabilities, but also a whole new set of uncertainties. AI-powered tools and technologies are enabling designers to streamline workflows, enhance collaboration, and unleash their creativity like never before. But how can workers gain these new skills they need to build with AI? I'm thrilled to welcome Jeff Hollan to the podcast to discuss how product design is changing and how developers are scaling up their skill sets to make the most of AI. As the head of applications and developer platform at Snowflake, Jeff is responsible for creating cloud based solutions for organizations store and use their data more effectively. He has a ringside view of how AI is changing the industry and how product professionals need to master AI to align with their vision and values. Snowflake is addressing these challenges by partnering with Coursera to launch their Northstar learning program. Welcome, Jeff. I'm so delighted to have you on the podcast.
Thanks so much, Arunav. This is a pleasure to be here.
At Snowflakes, how have you balanced the pressure to innovate and integrate AI technologies quickly with the technical debt that can result from it? Is there any risk that you foresee in it?
Yeah, this is a big trend, something I'm really passionate about because I see this a lot with our customers, which is everyone has seen and heard about all of the excitement around AI right now. And you'll often hear things around like disruptive, paradigm shift, those types of topics being thrown around, justifiably so. And the risk that often happens is if I'm an organization or if I'm a team, including, us at Snowflake, me as a Snowflake employee, how do I balance being able to take advantage of these benefits and move quickly to adopt them without inadvertently doing so in a way where you acquire what's called this technical debt, which is like, hey, we move so fast that maybe we took a few shortcuts. And because we took a few shortcuts here, that like now our platform is more unstable, or we don't know how to release fixes as reliable, or we can't monitor it. So that's the big balance that people are dealing with. And even at Snowflake, I'm leveraging AI technology every day, something we can talk about throughout this conversation. But how do we make sure that you do that without introducing technical debt? I think the first thing I would recommend to folks in this camp is just kind of like regular debt when it comes to things like student loans or a mortgage. Not all technical debt is necessarily bad. Like there absolutely are opportunities to say, you know what, we are going to move a little bit faster here. There's going to be some aspects where maybe we don't have all the answers for how we integrate this into our enterprise release process, but we know there's enough value that we want to start doing something now. So that would be the first thing I would say is like, take some calculated risks, and that's okay. Just make sure you have a plan for them. Like make sure that you are going back and you're paying off that mortgage over time, or that you're not building yourself into a big hole. And the other big recommendation that I always give folks here is make very intentional choices about the platforms in which you're building on. I found that it is much more beneficial to make sure as you're integrating or thinking about AI that you don't do things that are necessarily offshoots from your existing systems or your operations. Try to figure out where you have things that will help you on that journey holistically together. Obviously, working at Snowflake, this is a huge part of our products, but this is a big area where even as I've taken advantage of AI, it helps to have things like, oh, well, the data that I need for product telemetry is already in Snowflake. If I can leverage AI that's also next to my data in Snowflake, that's going to reduce the amount of technical debt because it's one less thing that I have to integrate across between. So this is a challenge that many organizations are dealing with, and those are a few things top of mind that I always recommend to folks.
In fact, that's a very interesting segue to a dichotomy that we're facing. But first, I want to preface that. Are you seeing an uptick in demand for AI capabilities from your customers? And why I'm asking this question is there's a lot of excitement about adopting AI. It can have profound impact on productivity, innovation, cutting cost, all of that. But there is also like it is high on the agenda of board and CEOs, but sometimes the teams are not necessarily moving at the same pace. Are you seeing that dichotomy when you interact with customers?
A huge tipping in demand. Like it could not be understated. I don't think I have had a customer meeting in the last 18 months, and I have multiple a week, that has not in one way or another turned into like, what do we do with AI? And for my job specifically, working at Snowflake, which is a data cloud, like the data cloud for mobilizing and helping take advantage of all the data. I think one of the reasons we see such uptick is, I mean, even think about some of the words that are often tossed around when it comes to data in an enterprise. You'll hear things like, data warehouse or data lake. Like the visualizations there, these are like big, huge areas of data, but they're not super accessible. Like I don't go throw an average person into a warehouse or into a lake and I say, like, go find what you need. And I think what people identify rightly so with AI is that you can provide this conversational, this intelligent layer on this mountain of insight and try to make that real. So that's the uptick of interest that I often hear. It's we know we have all this insight that's sitting here in our data assets. How do we make this real? How do we make this approachable so that the board members, the business leader, the folks that you mentioned are coming from the top down, that they have better ability to access that insight without having to go through the processes that are there traditionally. So it's been a huge boost of interest that we're dealing with and helping empower users to make that real for their businesses.
In fact, Sam Altman mentioned something very similar in a recent podcast where he said, yes, LLMs are incredible and they have some unique capabilities. But when it came to ChatGPT, it was a lot about the usability and how people harness that in a way that is easy for everyone to tap into. Is it changing the approach to building and updating products within companies?
Yes, and I would strongly recommend anyone who's doing anything on the product and development side of anything, you should be considering, to the point you mentioned, like the interface changes that are coming with AI, the fact that you can have things like natural language. Obviously, we've had natural language to some degree for a decade plus now, but really an interactive, intelligent natural language interface, and also identifying the types of data that will be useful. So I'll give a very real example that just happened in the last week. One of the products that my team focuses on is how you can run Python next to your data and code. So how you can bring like compute, whether it's data processing or ML training. As we've been building some of our features, one of the questions we have now is like, okay, what are some of the elements that, historically we would think about, well, we need to make sure that the code that's running in Snowflake is observable and usable and diagnosable for the developers, like the people who are using it to develop, to diagnose it and to improve and optimize. But now we're thinking about a slightly other lens, which is what are the data sources here? What are the signals here that can actually help fuel better AI experiences? Like, what are some of the things that if we fed to an AI, that even if we're not going to have that in version 1, in version 1.1, they could help automate and optimize over time with AI. So it's absolutely changed the product process as well, because we're considering what are some of the ways that this new paradigm can help us build better products and make our users more effective and efficient in their jobs.
I think an adjacent question to that is what about accessibility? Are large language models and AI translation improving accessibility of your products and the way they're built?
I think for sure. Many different types in terms of accessibility when it comes to transcription, different modes of factors, making that much more feasible and viable to just tap in. But then there's the other layer of accessibility that you touched on before, which is just ease of use, like the ability for somebody who's not necessarily an expert. Maybe they're a recent college grad and they're like, hey, I'm interested in learning about this space, but I don't quite know where to start, making it so it's accessible and approachable for different skill sets, different abilities, all of those things. I think AI has drastically accelerated. We've been able to do those things before, but the effort required has become substantially reduced because of the innovation happening in AI.
A lot of people who listen to this podcast can actually learn from your experience and how you've applied. So, can you talk about some of the challenges you and your teams have had to overcome in using AI?
I'll use a personal example here to kind of make AI real. Like, obviously, I've been an avid user of AI. Well, maybe not obviously, but I personally been an avid user of AI for a good long while now. Like ChatGPT, you name it. Hey, I can't remember the one I was doing the other day. I was visiting somewhere and I asked ChatGPT, like, hey, I've got my young kids with me. What should I do? That's been great. When it comes to my personal, like where I spend a lot of my work though, is here at Snowflake, trying to build great products for our users. one of the big challenges that I recently came across is like there was a data source that I really cared about. It was support cases. If you use Snowflake and you have a question or an issue, you call up customer support, you submit a support ticket, very common workflow. And I wanted to understand, okay, for customers who are using the products that my team is building, what are the support cases telling us about their experience? Like, where are they having issues? Where are they having questions? And we had the data there. Like, the data actually is in our own Snowflake account. All of the support cases for anything that's open, all the transcriptions, they're all stored there in data. But it's very difficult for me to manually go through all of that. And I'm like, you know what would be great at this? AI. But the obstacle that I had is like, this is sensitive data. Like, this has customer information, company names, you name it. So I can't go ship that off to ChatGPT and paste in customer support tickets, or else I'm going to be breaching customer trust. Like, that's an absolute no-go for us to do. So one of the big obstacles we had to overcome was, how do I get safe access to that AI capability so I can get the same superpowers that I get when I talk to ChatGPT, but now I can use it with my own data. And so this is one of the obstacles that we've helped build. And so thankfully, inside of Snowflake, we have what's called Cortex AI, where all within my Snowflake account, building Snowflake, we use Snowflake. I know this is a little bit of there's a lot of layers in the Russian doll here, but I, over a Friday afternoon, about a week and a half ago, just pointed all those support tickets at Cortex AI. I got a thumbs up from our security team and our data team because they're like, cool, you're not using your data anywhere. But now I had this powerful LLM running in my Snowflake account that spat back to me after 2 minutes and 45 seconds and about 67 cents in cloud spend. I got this incredible report. It actually shot back to me this report, which was, over the last 3 months, here's the summary of what people are opening support cases for. It was huge. It truthfully saved me hours and hours of time. And then I shared it with the rest of the product managers here. I was like, you got to try this, do this for your own products. And now they're all spinning it up. But like, the obstacle here we had to overcome was, how do you apply that power safely with your data? And being able to pull that AI to the data was really the sauce here that made this so I was able to tap into that magic and make my personal life a lot more productive.
No, that is indeed magical, Jeff. One of the things which has been talked about applying AI with product development is, obviously, product development as a process is a lot of data, a lot of insight, customer empathy. We talk a lot about the entire product management process. But can AI also allow product managers and customers and your teams to be more creative in their approach to problem solving?
One of the reasons I do like the term co-pilot often gets rallied around is because I do feel that that's where AI is going to help. I don't think it's going to replace. I'm pretty passionate about this, and even just from my own lived experience. And one of the ways, and I love this kind of context of creativity, is that I feel like it can help be a co-pilot in helping in areas where I deeply, deeply believe in my core. This is just the personal belief of Jeff. I believe that everybody has creativity in them, and I believe everybody has intelligence in them. Like, they are very, very intelligent, but we vary wildly where we are strong in our creativity and where we are strong in our intelligence for different topics, different things. So for me personally, my creativity manifests most through like code and building things and writing things. I'm always developing. I am terrible at aesthetics. Anything I tell this is absolutely true. I go to a conference where I'm about to give a talk. I literally take a picture of my outfit and I text it to my wife, who is incredibly strong in aesthetic and visual creativity. And I'm like, does my outfit even match? Like, that part of my brain just does not function. I look at something and I don't know if it is aesthetically pleasing or not. So for me, in the product process, I'm thinking about products. Like, I can think of a really good user experience, but when it comes to the look and feel of it, I really struggle. And I absolutely have used AI in my real life to say, hey, I've got a mock-up here, or I want to build something, like my demo has a website. Can you help me in making this aesthetically pleasing? And it's augmenting my creativity, but filling in the gaps where I'm just personally not as strong. And I think I often use the word superpower when it comes to AI. I feel like that AI is just helping me give a few superpowers that maybe I don't, innately have. I've struggled to develop, but it can help augment that. And it can make sure that when I'm going and giving my product pitch or whatever pitch that it has, that I do have an aesthetically pleasing side of it. But it's thankfully because AI was there as my co-pilot to fill in the gap. So instead of texting my wife, now I'm, texting my AI and I'm saying, can you make this great? So I love the framing, like that creative juice. I deeply, deeply believe, and is clear of experience, that one of the powerful capabilities of AI is help surfacing and rounding out creativity in spots that maybe you're not as creative in by default.
Right. And so one of the things in product management has been, and in UX design, is this notion of rapid iteration and how companies can apply that to reach. Do you think AI will turbocharge that process with this notion of continual exponential, which is like, don't go for like big hits right away? Make a small improvements, get it out. And that process is likely to become much faster for companies.
Yeah, and the other aspect where I think AI is very effective in the iteration is the volume of data that it can generate. So I'll give another example of where AI has helped me personally, which is we write a lot of documents. And if you're a product manager or you're interested in going to product management, you will almost definitely be writing a lot of documents, whether it's business review documents or product specs or you name it. So sometimes I'm like iterating on a strategy document. I'm like, oh, I need to update our strategy and roadmap document. And I've got a few bullet point ideas of the things I know I want to get across, but I just need a little bit of help in iterating just on that aspect, like that aspect of the product lifecycle. What's powerful here is I can turn to an AI system like Cortex AI. And it's not just that I can say, write for me a draft, but I can say, write for me 20 different drafts, or I could say, write this draft and then iterate and tweak. And it's not that these are things that I could not necessarily do on my own, but it's the volume in which now I can evaluate of like, oh, here's 5 different versions of this proposal. I'm using a document as an example. This could be images, renderings, you name it. So that rapid iteration to just be able to say, I don't want AI to decide what's the strategy doc that I publish. I want it to be my strategy document, but giving me that ability to help me iterate very, very quickly and brainstorm almost, and having this assistant that can very quickly, it takes me a few hours to write a 3-page document draft. It takes the AI 30 seconds. So I can generate 10 of them, and then that helps me have a better end result. I would say the quality of my documents has improved drastically since I've gone through this type of approach. So I do think that rapid iteration, this just accelerates it. It catalyzes it because some of those cycles that are required to iterate just go drastically down when you have this AI co-pilot at your side.
So, Jeff, you emphasized on a very important point, which is Copilot, which we at Coursera also say use Gen AI as a thought partner, not to replace your thought process, as an enhancer to your thinking as well. So, let's switch gears a little bit on talent development and hiring. What we think about building teams, diversity of a skill set is so important when we are doing that, when building a we put together a team. How has how you hire and what you're looking for from builders changed due to the need of AI skills?
I think all up, I do spend a lot of time, both in terms of, I'm very passionate. You'll find me on things like social media about like building community. And so I would actually say something I've noticed is I've worked with different people, whether I'm having conversations with them, mentoring, whatever else, especially around any roles in the tech space right now, is I do think that there's a big shift that is happening right now around hiring. We definitely see this for ourselves. Like I'm hiring for some certain roles, or helping Snowflake in hiring from certain roles. And the way that I would categorize it is like, with this paradigm shift, with this disruption, there absolutely is, I think, this awareness or this understanding that I guess there's two camps you can live in. There's the who's going to look at the new opportunities, AI being the most recent example, but I think the principle applies to any new concept or any new technology. Who will look at that opportunity and really run towards it and understand? I love the sentence you just said before, like thought partner. Who's going to do the thinking of like, how can I make this a thought partner? Where does it fit? And then you have another camp of people who are a little bit more passive. They're like, you know what? I'm going to let things happen. And when it comes to me, when it falls on my plate, or when I'm mandated to do it, then I'll figure it out. I think what's happening in the industry right now is across the board, people are really looking for more signals of the former. They're looking for people who show that passion, that enthusiasm, and especially when it comes to AI. And this is, again, maybe a good segue into why Snowflake's been helping and investing so much in things like Coursera is there's not really, I didn't learn anything about generative AI in any of my formal education, like, and even now I'm sure there's some courses that pop up. I know in universities they're doing a little bit, but you'd be really struggled to stay up to speed with the pace that the industry is moving if you're just going to rely on things to fall on your plate. So the candidates that I have personally talked to who stood out to me the most have almost always said something to the effect of, I have been personally spending my time and my cycles to stay up to speed on these topics. And I personally, taken these courses or tried these things out. that would be my number one advice to folks that I would say who are, especially if you're doing something in tech, but I think this goes across every industry, is leverage those assets. Like, don't wait for things to come to you. Go be hungry, go dig in, go try things out, go learn. I'm so thankful that there's platforms like Coursera in the world, because I think this is an incredible spot of like up to the minute updated content for you to go learn these things and understand them first class from incredible instructors and incredible education set. So that would be the biggest shift that I have seen. And please be in that former camp. That would be my number one advice to anyone. Don't wait for these things to come to you. Run to them.
Is that the reason why Snowflake decided to create its own set of online courses so builders can beef up their skills at their own time? And can you actually talk a little bit about Northstar learning paths and how builders will benefit?
Yes. So Snowflake has started this newer program called Northstar. And, Snowflake's had a number of learning programs over the course of its time, Snowflake University, SnowPro certification. The idea of Northstar is really, to your point, it's about breadth. It's how can we reach the maximum amount of builders as possible and helping them learn about and kind of apply the same things that I've talked through, of like where I'm using AI as one example. How can they all skill up and understand these things as well? So right now there's a course in Coursera, which is an introductory course. It's everything that you need to know as either a data scientist, data engineer, or a developer of like, what is Snowflake? Like, how does it fit in? Maybe you've heard a little bit about Snowflake. It's been around for 11 or so years now, but this is a great thing to get going. But we're pushing to put more courses out there. And to your point of like, why Coursera and why Northstar now, it's both in terms of, we think that Snowflake can be a really powerful answer to a number of these questions, but even broader than that, we just want to be contributing into the learning ecosystem to helping people have the tools that they need so they understand what's available. They understand what are the patterns that here. Oh yeah, Jeff mentioned the support case scenario. That's something that maybe I could apply in my business, or that maybe people in my business could benefit from. So it's all completely free. It's all high quality content. But that's really been the mission of Northstar, is how can we reach the maximum amount of builders as possible and helping them stay up to speed and help them understand how they can tap into capabilities around data and how data can impact their jobs and their businesses.
And Jeff, seeing how passionately you talk about this, I think it's also a moral responsibility of innovators like Snowflakes and other large companies to really become educators and develop the skills, help diversify the pool that's available in the world so that it can create opportunity for everyone, isn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. This is where I'm so excited about other paradigm shifts like the internet, like mobile or whatever else, because truthfully, whatever your background is, whatever your skill set is, it is absolutely the responsibility of all of us working in the business industry to figure out like how do we open that circle wider? How do I make it approachable from anyone, whatever their skill set, whatever their age, whatever their experience, so that they can participate in this, so they can contribute to us? Because I also deeply believe, and you mentioned this in hiring, that the best products, the best experiences, the best businesses are built when you have a strong set of diverse individuals of diverse backgrounds who feel comfortable and confident and they feel like they can contribute value into it. And the only way that I truly believe that's viable at scale, at global scale, is through some of these education investments. Like it's just approachable. It really levels that playing field. So yeah, the passion is genuine. I will say I deeply, deeply, deeply believe in this, and I've seen the impact of those diverse teams through customers I work with, but just within Snowflake as well.
Yeah, so now that you've actually taken a giant leap of launching your first course, do you think you'll also envision sort of a new catalog of courses which either become available on Coursera or any other platform, but extending this mission further?
Yes. And there's 3 learning paths right now that we're planning to launch that follow on some of the intro ones right now, focused on the 3 primary areas that we feel at Snowflake that we can add the most value into this ecosystem. So one of them is on modern data pipelines, which is everything you need to know from, hey, I've got, raw data, maybe data that's in Salesforce or data in some data set that I care about. How do I build a modern data pipeline that turns that into insight? So that's one learning path. The other one is around AI and AI models. We've talked a lot today about the impact of generative AI. So that's one where we're working with customers. We ourselves are building things that we feel like we've got some really valuable things to build. So that's the second learning path. And then the third one is application, just developers. I also feel strongly, I feel strongly about a lot of things, I guess. the next wave, the next generation of applications are really going to be centered around this AI paradigm shift that we've been talking about. So the third course path is around applications and what are the type of applications that are being built or that can be built that center around data and AI. So those three learning paths, absolutely keep an eye on Coursera, on the Snowflake developer channels, because we'll be keeping that up to date as we continue to push content there. So we're really excited about the sustained program that we're working on.
I love that. I love that. And so Snowflake really values thinking big and creating impact. How are you going to measure the impact of these launches and the course becoming available to more builders? Have you set some sort of goal for yourself?
It's big numbers. To your point, the whole impact here, especially when we look at Northstar, the impact we're looking at is reaching as many builders as possible to skill up. So we want to enable millions of builders. Every single person listening here, whether it's teams that you're helping managing the content for, whether you yourself are interested in taking these courses, what we are really measuring and what we're optimizing for is how do we get the global reach? How do we get millions of learners? So that's the North Star that we ourselves are measuring ourselves against and doing everything we can to tell the story on podcasts like this and partner with amazing platforms like Coursera, because we feel like that's the best opportunity to give us that global reach.
So, Jeff, to close out this conversation, can you share how you personally have incorporated AI into day-to-day life?
Yeah, thankfully I've been able to sprinkle a few of those in throughout the conversation.
That's right.
I would say at least 3 or 4 times a day. I'm trying to practice what I preach to of like running towards this. So I'm on the cutting edge here for sure. But at least 3 or 4 times a day, concretely, where AI is helping make me more productive and improve the quality of the outputs that I'm doing. And in my life as a product manager, that's understanding customer needs, making sure that we're building great experiences, and then measuring the impact of those experiences. And AI has helped with every single one of those. And why I'm so excited and why I came to Snowflake from my past jobs is that all of those things for me personally in product management center around data. It's like, what is the data that I need to make those decisions, whether it's the support cases that I talked about, whether it's the product roadmap data, you name it. And so having that ability to have AI with the data, and in my case with Snowflake, has been incredibly impactful. I mentioned I'm on the cutting edge. I don't want to be on the bleeding cutting edge forever. I really want to try to showcase, here's the things that have worked well. And there's been a few duds. There's been a few things where I'm like, I thought AI could help here. Not quite yet. This wasn't as productive. So it's helped me in so many ways. And kind of our mission and purpose here is, how do we surface the good stuff and make it so that more and more people are experiencing that and becoming more productive and delivering more value? To me, the end result for everything that I do, the thing that gives me the energy is I want to have confidence that, in my case right now, builders of Snowflake, that they are more productive in their jobs, that they're providing more impact to their businesses and eventually more impact to the world, because the users of Snowflakes are building solutions and products that the world is consuming. If I can make them more productive, I can make more efficient, I feel like I am adding more goodness into the world. So that's really at the end of the day what I've been focusing on, and that we want to try to instill across the bat is helping people be more productive and, again, create output that is a positive impact and brings us all forward. So it's an exciting time. Is very, very clear in my enthusiasm. I know it's an audio format. I'm very animated here as well. But yeah, it's been incredibly impactful for me personally.
No, it's all coming from your voice too. So it's absolutely, you hit on a very important point. On one side, we have to enable institutions, companies, organizations to become far more productive and innovative, but also equipping people so we can minimize or at least mitigate the disruptive impact of these technologies on humanity at large. So I think you're bridging a very important gap, and your passion, your knowledge, and the work that you're doing is extremely valuable. And we are deeply honored to be your partner, Jeff. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
This has been great. Thank you again. This has been a real pleasure and an honor.
If you enjoyed this episode of the Coursera podcast, please rate, review, and share. Until next time, I'm Arunav. Thank you for tuning in.